Do you think there's hesitation around digital retailing?
I do not think there's hesitation. I think there's excitement around digital retailing.
Yeah, I think people are talking about like maybe there is hesitation, but for me, I don't think that there's hesitation. It's just this is just a standard like adoption cycle of anything. You look at the way that we adopt, handling leads, or even back in the day, websites or CRM technology, or moving into the cloud, whatever. There's just always a ramp up period, and you kind of sell to the early adopters, then you go to more to the advanced market, then you get to the pragmatic buyer, and then you get kind of the late bloomers. And I think we're early in that ramp up. I think there's a lot of questions around digital retailing, though, like around what it can do, what it can't do, and what the law restricts, and then what are the upsides. You're living it. You're putting it in a ton of stores right now. What are you seeing as the big upsides?
Well, I think the big upside is you're promoting transparency to customers on a platform that they're comfortable with. They can go on a website at their house, at work, really get more information than they could a few years ago. As far as the complexities with digital retailing, if it was Jared and Joe's dealership, it's a lot easier to implement a process, work with a software provider and customize it for you. When you're a software provider like Deal Inspire, we have to provide solutions that work with 18,000 different dealers that use a myriad of back-end providers, let's say, a myriad of banks. So there's inherent complexities there. And I think the hesitation is, I think some dealers think it's an all or nothing game, in the sense that if it's the whole transaction isn't online, it's not digital retailing, which the reality of it is, I never bought a Tesla, but I imagine if I did, I'd have to sign something when the car got to my house, right? So my thinking is, we get to the point of the transaction where 99% of it is done. You have a couple documents, and then, to me, that's the ideal experience, and that's what we're creating at Deal Inspire.
Yeah, I think there's a belief that because digital retailing, the vision is one-click shopping on Amazon and my car gets delivered to my house or something like that. And that's when the average consumer, average dealer, when the population thinks of digital retailing, that's the experience that we're conditioned to think of. But to your point, innovation takes hold in stages. And what consumers want today, proven without question, is they just want an experience they can trust. And to your point, I don't have to have that entire experience to dramatically increase the level of trust I can provide for my consumers. And when trust goes up, closing rates go up. When trust goes up, gross goes up. Yep. So all of this is good for a dealer. So, dealers that are out there thinking I don't know, it's not there yet, you can't do the full end-to-end solution, you're still losing out on the benefits of increased transparency, of a less friction-filled process. Even if it's not completely frictionless, it is more frictionless than it was before. And that's just how innovation is adopted. You can't wait until it's all done to get your toe in the water.
Yeah, I think the Amazon example is a funny one, because we've tested that call to action on websites like Click Here to Buy. I think customers, they don't really understand that. They wouldn't be buying a car if they click that button. They literally think if they click that, they're buying a car. Well, what we see on the websites that had that, the click-through rate is extremely low. Because if you think about car buying versus buying a product on Amazon, you're purchasing an asset. And when you purchase an asset such as a house or a car, it typically isn't just click it, buy it, putting it in a shopping cart and check out. There's a lot of variables, like the trade-in value. The net trade-in value affects the payment dramatically. Most customers have a trade-in. You can't really get to the end-to-end solution with one click without getting information. Does your trade-in have any accidents? And various things like that. What are the mileage on it and so forth? So it's much more complex in that way. However, to your point, it's not a linear process. It's a process where you need flexible tools that the customer can enter or exit the digital retailing experience anytime they want.
There's probably three, in my mind, off the cuff. This is totally impromptu, by the way. This is supposed to be scrappy video. This is scrappy video.
Super.
But there's three big variables in the digital retailing process. The first is selecting the inventory. The second is the variable of potential for a trade-in. And the third is the financing and the payment terms, right? And I guess that's before you get all the legal stuff. So maybe you'd say 4, all the paperwork. But if we can just provide transparency and price, availability, and whatever the consumer's asking for, and trade-in numbers, values, bank rates, and just any transparency you can add to the process along the way is okay, even if you can't string it all together, or if consumers want to kind of bounce through. And I just think that as dealers, as we as I think about our stores, I think about to make decisions for our stores. I have an advantage because I get to build software in my day job, and I get to run dealerships on my weekend job. And dealers have to realize that when you build software, you never build for perfection. You build for fast, quick value, and then you learn how to add more value to it and more value to it. And so as a dealer, as a buyer of innovation, and as a buyer of the solutions, you got to get in and buy it when it's early and grab the first rung of value that the partner can provide. And then you got to have a partner you can trust that's going to continue on that journey to add more value, add more innovation, right? And so the notion of let's sit on the sidelines until like it's end to end, that's a bad way to think about innovation. It's a bad way to think about innovation as a software provider.
Yeah.
It's a bad way to think about innovation as a dealer.
So when I was a dealer, this was a long time ago, but I was doing digital retailing essentially, because what happened was someone would inquire about a car, and we would work the deal over email or the CRM system. And then in many cases, the customer wanted to take delivery of that vehicle. We printed out the paperwork and I met them at like O'Hare Airport.
Yeah.
That is essentially digital retailing, right? We did the whole transaction essentially online. We didn't have any tools like Online Shopper or any of the digital retailing tools today. But what we did have is a communication that went back and forth between me and the customer to get to an endpoint that they felt comfortable taking delivery of the vehicle. And everything was printed out through we had Reynolds, and all the documents were printed. I mean, there's nothing fancy about it, but really we fulfilled that customer's, the customer's desires not to walk into a dealership. Yeah. They wanted
gave them the experience they wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think another reason that it's hard for us, even as someone that really likes and gravitates towards innovation, I think when I put a retail hat on, one of the reasons that it's hard to adopt and change in this is the industry really hasn't coalesced around a framework for how to operate within digital retailing. And that's one of the things that I'm excited to be working on with you, that we're going to be releasing at DSCS. And we've got to solve for how do I think about this from a marketing perspective? How do I think about this from a process perspective and the changes that need to happen to my process? And then from a structure perspective in the dealership, what job roles need to change? What responsibilities need to change? Who needs to take care of what so that this can scale? But we as dealers and as an industry we desperately need sort of a framework that we can walk within. And that doesn't mean that there won't be digital marketing or lots of digital retailing providers, because there will be. They'll all provide different types of value. But as a dealer, it's easier to operate. As a business or of any type, it's easier to operate when you have a framework to operate with. And I think as we mature in our understanding and knowledge of what the process is and what customers want, I think it'll become just easier and easier. But again, I think for me, I just keep coming back to like, why hesitate? Like, get in now, grab the value that's there now, and it just continues to grow.
So we created 2 versions of Online Shopper. The first version we created is for the dealer that just wants to provide transparency to their customer. They don't really want to change their process. They just want to turn it on and go. It doesn't require training or anything. And it is a super lean machine. It's unbelievable. We have not created anything. I've not seen anything or created anything that generates an increase of leads like this tool. Then we have a new version of Online Shopper, and what that does is it is the more online and offline process. It allows the consumer to start online and pick it up at the dealership if they want. But what it also does is, and we're version 1, where it differs from version 1 is that when a customer goes deep down a funnel is on a vehicle, what we saw through our data is that 8 times out of 10, that customer who dests their deal on a car changes their mind. They end up buying a different vehicle. So we said, how do we solve for this with technology? And that's why we created a second version, which allows a customer to compare multiple vehicles on one dashboard and look at bank rates on each one of those, add in accessories on each one of those, and so forth. So then they can have a really good comparison. They can share that garage to their friends or basically whoever, and then pick it up wherever they left off at any point in time.
Yeah, that's pretty sick. So as a consumer, I can go in and I can say, I want to look at Model A versus Model B versus Model C, and I'm going to compare A, B versus C on payment bank option 1, 2, and 3. So I'm effectively looking at 9 options, 3 options for each car that I'm looking at, and I can zero down to where I want to go.
Exactly right.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like that's yeah, it's cool.
And then the other point of friction that we saw is when someone got to the credit application, most people bail, right? So we're thinking about it differently. Like what is a credit app, and how do we get that information in a different way? So then it's just less friction for that customer. Because the reality is when they see social security numbers and their spouse's social and all of those things, they're like, hey, I'm going to do this later. And they leave. So that part provides less value. So we're really working hard on, can we use biometrics to get information quicker? Can we do like a 5-liner, and then that fills the whole thing, right? And I think once we get past that place, that's just enough. That's just a lot closer to the end transaction.
How do you think about like the Amazons potentially of the world coming into the dealership space? And where do you see the risk points for dealers there?
So I'm not terribly worried about Amazon's coming into the space to disrupt the whole dealer ecosystem. Could Amazon purchase like a big used car retailer and make that online transaction different? Yeah, they can, because they can create their own financing arm. They can do a lot of things. They can create their own warranty arm and so forth. They can do a lot of things that regular dealers can't do just because of their scale, right? So is that a risk? Of course that's a risk. I do think dealers should be concerned about players like that versus dealership that's down the road from them. And that's why, like, our mantra is to future-proof dealerships. I feel it's my obligation and duty to provide technology to them to let them compete and give them a fair chance against those big players.
There's definitely some interesting. I don't know if you saw the speculation. I think it's just fair to say speculation. Maybe Tesla might go to a franchise.
I saw that.
A franchise model. It's like, well, duh, dealers, we exist because we solve the capital problem for the manufacturer. So that's it's an obvious sort of natural potential. But I think as a dealer, we'll always have to be looking at, okay, what's my 12-month competitive horizon look like, and then maybe what's the 3 to 5 year competitive horizon look like. And when I think about the 12-month competitive horizon, I'm concerned more about the dealer down the street, not necessarily the Amazon. But if you're thinking about a 3 to 5 year, you have to start saying, okay, how am I, to your words, how am I future-proofing my dealership against the potential of something like that?
Yeah.
And I think this goes right back to what we were talking about earlier, is that innovation isn't bought in perfection. Like, anyone that thinks you buy innovation at perfection is just doesn't understand it. If the first iPhone, if you waited until, let's say the iPhone 10 or whatever, you deem that as perfection, which I don't, but let's say you did, and so you waited until that was out, you would have lost how many years of using your iPhone's value. So just because you see what's available or what's potential in the future doesn't mean you shouldn't buy the early version. And I think that principle applies to processes in business, to systems. Like, you have to get in and start it early because there's early value there.
Yeah.
And you can't wait.
And like a tool like Online Shopper, we love feedback, right? If it doesn't work within your process, or there's something that we can add to add value to the customer in your dealership, we want to hear that because we build it.
Yeah, but that's a good partner, right? I think when you're selecting, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a bias here, and it's sort of a little awkward to have with one of my dealer partners. But I think when you're shopping for vendors, that's what you're buying. You're buying the vendor that isn't the best, because at any given time, someone can be the best technology, and then 3 months later, someone else could come out with something better. Frankly, just based on their sprint cycles on their engineering team.
Yeah.
Straight up, what you're buying is you're buying a partnership that you know that person's going to lean in, and over the long haul, they're going to listen to your feedback, and they're going to continue to. And so for me, when I shop for partners, I'm more interested in what's their innovation cycle than I am what's their current product.
Yeah.
Right. I want to know how they think about innovation. I want to know how they build. I want to know customer support. And when you find those kind of partners, that's when it's good for the long haul.
All right, we're good.
We're just getting rolling.
That was question 1. What's question 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's 2?
You have something else?